When the sun goes down, most Ohio towns become peaceful places to call home, but a handful of them transform into something entirely different: empty streets, abandoned buildings, ancient cemeteries, and forests so quiet that every sound feels like a warning. These are the places where locals swap unsettling stories, where strange sightings have been reported for generations, and where many residents admit they simply don't go out after dark. Now, whether every legend is true or simply the product of history, folklore, and imagination is up to you to decide. But one thing is certain: each of these towns has earned a reputation that refuses to fade. So lock your doors, turn down the lights, and join us as we count down the 12 creepiest Ohio towns after sunset, where locals say the night is best avoided. And make sure you stay until number 1, because its terrifying reputation has made it one of the most talked about haunted places, not just in Ohio, but in all of America. Number 12, New Richmond. Perched along the banks of the Ohio River, New Richmond appears charming during the day, with its historic downtown, quiet neighborhoods, and scenic waterfront. But as darkness settles over the river, the atmosphere changes dramatically. Thick fog frequently rolls in from the water, swallowing the streets and leaving only the glow of old streetlights piercing through the mist. It's this eerie transformation that has fueled local ghost stories for generations. Many longtime residents speak of hearing footsteps along the empty riverwalk late at night, even when no one is around. Some claim they've seen shadowy figures standing near the docks before disappearing into the fog without a trace. Others report hearing what sounds like conversations drifting across the river, despite there being nobody nearby. Whether these sounds are tricks of the wind or something far stranger remains a mystery. The town's long history contributes to its unsettling reputation. During the 1800s, the Ohio River was one of America's busiest transportation routes. Steamboats, traders, soldiers, and travelers constantly passed through New Richmond, and not everyone survived the dangerous journey. Floods, accidents, and river disasters claimed countless lives, leaving behind stories that have become woven into local folklore. One of the most persistent legends involves an old river captain who supposedly still patrols the shoreline after midnight. Witnesses describe seeing the silhouette of a man wearing what appears to be old-fashioned clothing standing near the water before slowly vanishing into the darkness. While no evidence has ever confirmed these sightings, enough people have shared similar experiences to keep the tale alive. Nearby cemeteries add another layer of mystery. Visitors have reported cold spots even during warm summer nights, sudden feelings of being watched, and unexplained whispers carried by the wind. Paranormal enthusiasts often visit hoping to capture unusual photographs or electronic voice phenomena, though skeptics argue that the quiet surroundings simply make ordinary sounds seem far more sinister. Even locals who don't believe in ghosts admit they avoid certain stretches of the riverfront after midnight. Whether it's because of the dense fog, the absolute silence, or the countless stories passed down through generations, New Richmond earns its place among Ohio's creepiest towns once the sun goes down. Number 11. Marietta. As Ohio's oldest permanent settlement, Marietta has accumulated more than 2 centuries of history, and with that history comes an astonishing number of ghost stories. Beautiful brick streets, Victorian homes, and historic landmarks attract thousands of visitors every year, but many believe the town reveals an entirely different personality after sunset. Perhaps the most famous location is Mound Cemetery, where Revolutionary War officers are buried alongside some of the region's earliest settlers. During daylight hours, it's a peaceful historical site. At night, however, visitors have described hearing footsteps crunching on gravel paths, despite seeing no one nearby. Others report strange flashes of light weaving between the gravestones before disappearing into the darkness. The town also sits atop an ancient Native American earthwork complex that predates European settlement by centuries. Some paranormal researchers speculate that locations with such long histories often accumulate legends of unexplained activity, though historians emphasize there's no scientific evidence supporting those claims. Still, stories continue to circulate among locals who insist certain areas simply feel different after dark. Historic buildings throughout downtown have their own tales. Employees working late shifts have reported doors opening by themselves, unexplained knocking sounds echoing through empty hallways, and objects mysteriously changing location overnight. Several bed and breakfast owners openly embrace the town's haunted reputation, with guests occasionally reporting hearing footsteps in rooms above them despite nobody occupying the floor. The nearby Ohio and Muskingum rivers create another eerie effect. As temperatures drop after sunset, mist often drifts across the water, covering parts of the town in a ghostly haze. Combined with the glow of antique street lamps and centuries-old architecture, Marietta can feel more like the setting of a Gothic novel than a modern American town. Residents often say they aren't necessarily afraid of living in Marietta, they're simply respectful of its history. Whether those stories are based on imagination, coincidence, or something that cannot yet be explained, few would deny that Ohio's oldest town becomes considerably more mysterious after dark. Number 10. Peninsula. Tucked inside the breathtaking Cuyahoga Valley, Peninsula is surrounded by dense forests, winding trails, and rugged hills that make it one of Ohio's most picturesque destinations. During the day, hikers, cyclists, and tourists fill the area with life. But once night falls and the crowds disappear, the surrounding wilderness takes on an entirely different character. The roads leading into and out of town pass through thick woodland, where visibility becomes limited after sunset. Locals often describe the silence as almost overwhelming. Unlike cities where distant traffic constantly fills the air, Peninsula's nights are broken only by the occasional rustling of leaves, distant animal calls, or the sudden snap of branches deep within the forest. Many visitors have claimed to hear unexplained voices while hiking near old trails after dusk. Others describe the unsettling feeling of being followed despite never seeing another person. Park rangers generally attribute these experiences to wildlife, echoes, and the psychological effects of isolation in dense woods. But those explanations haven't stopped the legends from spreading. Several abandoned structures hidden within the surrounding valley have become the focus of countless ghost stories. Although many are located on protected land and closed to the public, tales of mysterious lights appearing in broken windows and shadowy figures moving between trees continue to circulate online and among local residents. Fog is another major contributor to Peninsula's eerie reputation. Moisture trapped within the valley frequently creates dense patches that roll silently across roads and trails. Drivers often describe entering walls of fog so thick they can barely see beyond the hood of their vehicles. Combined with the towering trees and complete darkness, even a short nighttime drive can become surprisingly unsettling. Wildlife also plays tricks on the imagination. Owls, coyotes, foxes, and deer are common throughout Cuyahoga Valley National Park. Their calls can sound surprisingly human, especially to visitors unfamiliar with the forest at night. More than one frightened traveler has mistaken an animal's cry for someone screaming in the distance. Whether it's the ancient forests, abandoned buildings, dense fog, or simply the power of an active imagination, Peninsula proves that some of Ohio's creepiest places aren't abandoned at all. They're simply surrounded by enough darkness to let every mystery grow a little larger once the sun goes down. Number 9. Loudonville. Loudonville proudly calls itself the canoe capital of Ohio, attracting outdoor enthusiasts eager to explore the scenic Mohican River and the sprawling forests that surround the town. In daylight, it's a peaceful destination filled with campers, kayakers, and hikers. But after sunset, the same forests that draw visitors begin to inspire a very different kind of attention. The nearby Mohican State Forest has long been associated with strange stories. Campers occasionally report hearing footsteps circling their campsites late at night, only to discover no one outside when they investigate. Others describe distant voices echoing through the trees despite being miles from the nearest campground. Several isolated backroads weaving through the forest have developed eerie reputations among locals. Drivers sometimes report seeing figures standing beside the road who disappear before they can get close. While poor lighting, fog, and wildlife likely explain many of these encounters, the stories have become part of the region's folklore. Abandoned cabins and forgotten structures scattered throughout the woods only add to the mystery. Though many are inaccessible or located on private property, rumors persist about unexplained lights appearing inside buildings that haven't had electricity for decades. Paranormal investigators occasionally visit the area hoping to document unusual activity, but no definitive evidence has ever emerged. Dense tree cover makes the forest exceptionally dark after sunset. On moonless nights, only narrow beams from flashlights or vehicle headlights cut through the darkness. The lack of visibility often heightens normal fears, making every rustling leaf or snapping branch feel far more significant than it really is. Adding to the atmosphere are the sounds of nocturnal wildlife. Coyotes howling across the valley, barred owls calling from towering trees, and the movement of deer through underbrush combine to create an environment where the imagination can easily take over. Even experienced campers admit that spending a night deep within Mohican's forests feels completely different from exploring the same trails during the day. For many residents, Loudonville isn't frightening because of confirmed hauntings. It's frightening because its vast forests leave so much unknown hidden just beyond the reach of your flashlight. Once darkness blankets the woods, every shadow seems capable of telling its own terrifying story. Number 8. Zoar. At first glance, Zoar seems almost frozen in time. Founded in 1817 by German religious separatists seeking a peaceful life in America, the village has been meticulously preserved, with brick homes, narrow lanes, and historic buildings that look much as they did nearly 2 centuries ago. During the day, it feels like a living museum. But when darkness settles over the village and tourists leave, many say Zoar takes on a far more unsettling personality. The village's age is one of the biggest reasons for its eerie reputation. Many of the original homes, workshops, and communal buildings remain standing, each with countless stories hidden within their old wooden walls. Employees and volunteers working evening events have occasionally reported hearing footsteps moving across empty floors long after visitors have gone home. Some claim they've heard doors slowly creak open on their own, only to find every room completely deserted. One of the most talked about locations is the Zoar Hotel, built in the early 1800s to accommodate travelers passing through the village. Staff members over the years have shared stories of unexplained noises, cold spots that appear without warning, and the feeling that someone is standing just behind them in otherwise empty hallways. Paranormal investigators have visited the building multiple times, recording unusual sounds that believers argue cannot easily be explained, though skeptics point to the natural settling of an aging structure. The cemetery surrounding the historic village has inspired its own collection of legends. Visitors walking among the old gravestones near sunset sometimes report hearing whispers carried by the breeze, while others describe sudden chills despite warm weather. Some photographers have even claimed to capture strange light anomalies in nighttime pictures, though experts often attribute such effects to dust particles, insects, or camera reflections. Zoar's remarkably quiet streets contribute heavily to its atmosphere. After dark, there are few vehicles, little artificial lighting, and almost no background noise. Every footstep echoes against the brick buildings, and even a gentle gust of wind can make tree branches scrape against old windows in unsettling ways. It's the kind of silence that naturally encourages the imagination to fill in the blanks. Residents are proud of Zoar's remarkable history and generally view the ghost stories as colorful local folklore rather than established fact. Still, many admit that walking alone through the village after midnight feels entirely different than visiting during a busy afternoon. Whether it's the centuries-old architecture or simply the weight of history, Zoar easily earns its place among Ohio's creepiest towns after sunset. Number 7. Mansfield. Few places in Ohio carry a reputation as chilling as Mansfield. While it's a thriving city with schools, businesses, and neighborhoods, its name has become almost synonymous with one location in particular, the massive Ohio State Reformatory. Towering over the surrounding area with Gothic-inspired architecture, the prison has become one of the most famous allegedly haunted buildings in America, drawing thousands of visitors each year. The reformatory operated from 1896 until 1990, housing thousands of inmates during its decades of operation. Over the years, countless violent incidents, illnesses, and deaths occurred within its walls, creating an atmosphere that many visitors describe as deeply unsettling. Though much of its haunted reputation comes from folklore and paranormal television shows rather than scientific evidence, the prison's imposing appearance alone is enough to make many people uneasy. Guided tours regularly share stories of visitors hearing unexplained voices, distant screams, or heavy footsteps echoing through empty cell blocks. Others claim to experience sudden drops in temperature or feelings of intense anxiety while walking certain corridors. Paranormal investigation groups frequently conduct overnight sessions inside the prison, hoping to document unusual activity using specialized equipment, though no investigation has produced conclusive proof of supernatural phenomena. Outside the prison itself, Mansfield has accumulated additional ghost stories involving historic homes, old cemeteries, and abandoned industrial buildings. Some longtime residents tell of strange lights appearing in vacant structures or unexplained noises coming from buildings that have sat empty for years. As with many historic towns, the line between documented history and local legend has blurred over time. Driving near the reformatory after dark can be particularly striking. Its towering stone walls loom above the surrounding streets, illuminated just enough to reveal rows of empty windows staring into the night. Even visitors with no interest in the paranormal often describe feeling an undeniable sense of unease simply because of the building's overwhelming presence. Interestingly, the prison has also gained fame through popular culture, serving as the filming location for The Shawshank Redemption. Fans visit from around the world to see the iconic setting, though many leave talking less about the movie and more about the eerie atmosphere they experienced after sunset. Whether one believes in ghosts or not, there's little doubt that Mansfield possesses one of Ohio's most intimidating nighttime landmarks. The city's long history, combined with the haunting silhouette of the Ohio State Reformatory, has cemented its place on nearly every list of the state's creepiest destinations. Number 6. Gallipolis. Situated along the banks of the Ohio River, Gallipolis is one of the state's oldest river communities. Founded in the late 18th century by French settlers, the town's rich history is visible in its architecture, historic parks, and riverfront streets. But according to generations of locals, the river has brought more than just commerce. It has also brought countless unexplained stories that emerge after dark. The Ohio River has always been both a blessing and a danger. Throughout the 19th century, floods, steamboat accidents, and unpredictable currents claimed many lives. These tragedies have become deeply embedded in Gallipolis folklore, leading to stories of mysterious figures seen walking along the shoreline late at night before fading into the darkness. Residents occasionally describe seeing strange lights hovering above the river on particularly foggy evenings. Some believe they're simply distant boats or atmospheric reflections, while others insist the glowing orbs move in ways that defy easy explanation. Similar reports have surfaced for decades, keeping the mystery alive despite the lack of definitive answers. Gallipolis City Park and several nearby historic cemeteries are also frequently mentioned in local ghost stories. Evening visitors sometimes report hearing faint voices, footsteps on empty pathways, or the sensation of being watched while exploring the quiet grounds. Paranormal enthusiasts have investigated these areas for years, though like most haunted locations, compelling evidence remains elusive. The historic downtown contributes to the town's eerie charm. Many of its buildings date back more than a century, and business owners occasionally share harmless tales of unexplained noises after closing time. Creaking staircases, doors moving with changes in air pressure, and the sounds of old buildings settling naturally have all helped fuel Gallipolis's haunted reputation. Perhaps the most unsettling aspect of Gallipolis is its atmosphere on foggy nights. Dense mist often drifts across the river, softening the glow of streetlights and reducing visibility to just a few yards. The waterfront becomes almost silent, except for the gentle movement of water against the shoreline. In those conditions, it's easy to understand how ordinary sights and sounds can take on an extraordinary quality. Most locals don't claim their town is haunted in the literal sense. Instead, they acknowledge that Gallipolis possesses a unique combination of history, river legends, and nighttime scenery that naturally encourages ghost stories to flourish. Whether those stories are rooted in fact or imagination, they continue to make this historic river town one of Ohio's most intriguing places after sunset. Number 5. East Liverpool. East Liverpool's identity has always been tied to industry. Once known as the pottery capital of the world, the town thrived during the 19th and early 20th centuries, with dozens of factories producing ceramics that were shipped across the country. Today, while many businesses remain active, reminders of its industrial past can still be found in aging brick buildings, abandoned factories, and empty warehouses scattered throughout parts of the city. These silent structures have become the backdrop for some of Ohio's most persistent urban legends. After dark, the deserted industrial areas create an atmosphere unlike almost anywhere else in the state. Long rows of vacant windows reflect passing headlights, while rusting machinery and towering smokestacks cast strange shadows across empty streets. Even without ghost stories, the setting alone can feel unnerving. Former factory workers have occasionally shared stories of hearing unexplained banging sounds inside buildings that have stood empty for decades. Others claim lights sometimes appear in upper windows where electricity no longer exists. Skeptics argue these sightings are likely caused by reflections, trespassers, or natural structural noises. But the stories continue to circulate throughout the community. Several of the city's oldest neighborhoods have their own collection of legends. Residents have described hearing footsteps on empty porches, seeing shadowy figures crossing abandoned lots, or noticing unexplained movement inside long vacant homes. While none of these accounts have ever been verified, they have become part of East Liverpool's local folklore. The surrounding hills and the nearby Ohio River add another layer to the town's nighttime atmosphere. Fog frequently settles into low-lying areas, wrapping abandoned buildings in a blanket of mist that makes them appear even more isolated. Combined with the silence that often descends after businesses close, the city can feel almost frozen in time. Urban explorers have long been drawn to East Liverpool's historic industrial architecture, though authorities strongly discourage entering abandoned properties due to serious safety hazards such as unstable floors, collapsing roofs, and exposed materials. The buildings are fascinating pieces of history, but they can also be extremely dangerous regardless of any ghost stories attached to them. East Liverpool's reputation doesn't rely solely on tales of hauntings. Instead, it's the combination of economic history, abandoned landmarks, river fog, and generations of local legends that gives the town its unmistakably eerie character. Once night falls, every empty factory and silent street seems to whisper reminders of a much busier, and perhaps much stranger, past. Number 4. Athens. Nestled among the rolling hills of southeastern Ohio, Athens is widely known as a vibrant college town thanks to Ohio University. During the day, the streets are filled with students, cafes buzz with conversation, and the historic brick buildings create a welcoming atmosphere. But after sunset, Athens becomes the center of some of the state's most enduring paranormal legends, earning a reputation that extends far beyond Ohio. Perhaps no place is more closely associated with the town's eerie image than the abandoned Athens Lunatic Asylum, officially known today as the Ridges. Built in the late 19th century, the sprawling Gothic complex once housed thousands of psychiatric patients. Although much of the property has been repurposed by the university, the massive stone buildings still dominate the hillside, their towers silhouetted against the night sky. Over the years, stories surrounding the former asylum have become legendary. Visitors have claimed to hear distant voices echoing through empty corridors, unexplained footsteps on abandoned staircases, and doors that seem to move on their own. Paranormal investigators frequently visit the area, hoping to capture evidence of supernatural activity, though no scientific investigation has ever confirmed the existence of ghosts. One of the most famous legends involves an abandoned room where a patient reportedly remained unnoticed for weeks after her death, allegedly leaving behind a permanent stain on the floor. The story has become one of Ohio's best-known ghost tales, though many historians note that details have been exaggerated over time through repeated retellings. Athens is also surrounded by numerous old cemeteries hidden among wooded hillsides. Some local folklore claims these cemeteries form a mysterious pentagram around the town, with the asylum positioned near its center. Historians generally dismiss this idea as an urban legend, pointing out that the cemetery locations were established independently over many decades. Nevertheless, the story remains one of the region's most persistent myths. The winding roads surrounding Athens only enhance its unsettling reputation. Dense forests, steep hills, and limited street lighting create an atmosphere where fog often blankets the landscape. Drivers traveling these roads late at night sometimes describe seeing unexplained shadows darting between trees or feeling an overwhelming sense that someone is watching them from the darkness. Wildlife, changing light conditions, and the isolation of the hills likely explain many of these experiences, but they continue to inspire new stories every year. Even students who dismiss the ghost stories often admit that walking across certain parts of campus late at night feels strangely eerie. The combination of Victorian architecture, towering trees, and centuries of local folklore makes Athens one of those rare places where history and imagination blend seamlessly. Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, there's no denying that once the sun goes down, Athens feels very different than it does during daylight hours. Number 3. Moonville. Unlike the other towns on this list, Moonville is no longer a functioning community. Hidden deep within the forests of southeastern Ohio, this former mining settlement has been abandoned for decades. Today, almost nothing remains except scattered foundations, fragments of old structures, and one location that has achieved almost mythical status: the Moonville Tunnel. During the late 1800s, Moonville was a busy coal mining town connected by a railroad line that cut directly through the surrounding hills. As coal production declined, residents gradually moved away until the town disappeared entirely. Nature reclaimed the buildings, leaving behind only reminders that a community once existed here. The abandoned railroad tunnel has become one of Ohio's most famous paranormal destinations. Countless visitors have reported hearing footsteps echoing through the tunnel, despite being completely alone. Others describe seeing strange lights approaching from the darkness, only for them to vanish moments later. One of the oldest legends tells of a railroad brakeman who was struck and killed by a train near the tunnel, with some believing his spirit still walks the tracks carrying a lantern. Another story involves a railway signalman said to have died while working along the line. According to local folklore, visitors occasionally spot a glowing light moving through the tunnel before disappearing into the surrounding woods. While skeptics attribute such sightings to distant flashlights, vehicle headlights, or natural optical illusions, the stories continue to attract ghost hunters from across the country. Reaching Moonville after sunset is an experience in itself. The trail winds through dense forest with very little artificial lighting. As darkness falls, every rustling leaf and snapping branch becomes amplified by the silence. Owls, coyotes, and other nocturnal animals provide a soundtrack that can easily convince first-time visitors they're hearing something far more sinister. The tunnel itself is cold, damp, and remarkably quiet. Water drips steadily from the ceiling while the curved walls create unusual echoes that distort even the smallest sounds. A single flashlight barely illuminates the far end, making it easy for the imagination to transform ordinary shadows into something much more frightening. Today, Moonville is popular with hikers, photographers, and history enthusiasts, but many still avoid visiting after dark. Whether because of its tragic railroad history, its complete isolation, or the countless ghost stories that surround it, Moonville remains one of Ohio's most mysterious abandoned places and perhaps its most unforgettable. Number 2. Salem. Salem is often recognized for its historic downtown and beautifully preserved 19th-century architecture. But beneath its peaceful appearance lies a long tradition of local legends that have given the town an unexpectedly eerie reputation after sunset. Walking through Salem at night, it's easy to see why so many ghost stories have emerged. Rows of Victorian homes line quiet streets illuminated by antique-style streetlights, while towering trees cast long shadows across sidewalks that become nearly empty after dark. The setting alone feels like something lifted from a classic horror film. Several historic buildings throughout the town are rumored to be haunted. Business owners have occasionally shared stories of unexplained footsteps echoing through empty rooms after closing time, lights flickering without obvious explanation, and doors opening unexpectedly. While aging buildings naturally produce creaks, drafts, and electrical quirks, these experiences have become part of the town's folklore. Salem's old cemeteries are another source of countless local stories. Some visitors claim they've heard whispers while walking among the gravestones during the evening, while others describe seeing unusual lights moving between monuments. Paranormal investigators have explored these locations for years using cameras and recording equipment, but as with most haunted sites, compelling scientific evidence remains elusive. The countryside surrounding Salem contributes to the atmosphere as well. Narrow rural roads weave through forests and farmland, where fog frequently settles overnight. Drivers occasionally report catching brief glimpses of figures standing near the roadside before realizing there's nothing there. Experts often explain these experiences as visual illusions caused by low light, fatigue, or changing weather conditions, but the stories continue to circulate among residents. One reason Salem remains so intriguing is that its ghost stories are generally subtle rather than dramatic. Instead of sensational tales involving terrifying monsters or violent hauntings, most local legends focus on quiet, unexplained experiences. A strange sound, an unexplained shadow, or the unmistakable feeling that someone is nearby when no one else can be seen. That understated mystery has helped Salem build a reputation as one of Ohio's eeriest towns after dark. It isn't loud or theatrical. Instead, it's the kind of place where silence itself seems capable of telling unsettling stories. Number 1. Cleveland, Franklin Castle area. Claiming the top spot is one of Ohio's most famous haunted locations, the neighborhood surrounding Franklin Castle in Cleveland. Built in the 1880s by businessman Hannes Tiedemann, the imposing stone mansion resembles something from a European Gothic novel, complete with turrets, narrow windows, and intricate stonework. Even in broad daylight, the castle commands attention. At night, it becomes one of the state's most intimidating landmarks. Franklin Castle has been surrounded by mystery for well over a century. Tragic deaths within the Tiedemann family, including the loss of several children, fueled early rumors that the house was cursed. Over the decades, stories grew even more dramatic, with legends involving secret passageways, mysterious disappearances, hidden rooms, and ghostly apparitions. While many of these tales have never been substantiated by historical evidence, they have become deeply embedded in Ohio folklore. Visitors and former occupants have reported a wide range of unusual experiences. Some claim to hear footsteps climbing empty staircases late at night. Others describe doors opening by themselves, sudden cold spots in otherwise warm rooms, or the sensation of being watched while standing alone inside the mansion. Paranormal investigation teams have spent countless hours exploring the property, recording unexplained sounds and anomalies, though none have produced definitive proof of supernatural activity. Outside the castle itself, the surrounding neighborhood takes on a unique atmosphere after dark. The historic homes, mature trees, and softly lit streets create an environment that naturally complements the mansion's Gothic appearance. Tourists frequently stop outside the property at night, hoping to catch a glimpse of something unusual through its windows or capture mysterious images with their cameras. The castle's popularity has only grown thanks to books, documentaries, television specials, and online videos dedicated to haunted locations. It has become one of the most recognized paranormal landmarks in the Midwest, attracting ghost hunters, historians, photographers, and curious travelers alike. Historians caution that many of the castle's most sensational stories have been exaggerated or embellished over the years, making it difficult to separate documented history from urban legend. Yet perhaps that's exactly what makes Franklin Castle so captivating. Every generation adds another chapter to its mythology, ensuring the mystery never truly fades. Whether you believe the mansion is genuinely haunted or simply an extraordinary historic home surrounded by decades of storytelling, Franklin Castle has earned its legendary reputation. As darkness settles over Cleveland and its towering silhouette rises against the night sky, it's easy to understand why so many people consider this the creepiest place in all of Ohio after sunset.